So today I'm doing something different than what I normally do, and I'm going to be doing a tag video. So Holly created an original tag and tagged me in it. It's called Carol of the Books, and it has Christmas songs that relate to some kind of bookish prompt. I went upstairs to my read books to get books kind of to recommend to you. In addition, often I'll do tags using my unread shelf, but I never know if they're going to be good or not. So I'm excited to have this random assortment of books to recommend to you. So I will leave the link to Holly's video and all the questions down below in case you guys want to either do this on your channel if you have one, or if you don't, you can just leave the answers in the comments. I think it's fun to see how different people's answers can be. So the first one is, it came upon a midnight clear. So a nighttime scene on the cover, and I thought this one would be a good one. It's not really what you think of when you think of Christmas. This is Synapse by Stephen James, and it is 30 years in the future where AIs are kind of taking over. Right at the beginning of the story, our main character has miscarried, and the hospital wants her to take an AI baby instead, which is interesting. There's a lot of interesting moral things that are brought up in the story, and it ends up being a bit of a thriller type story. It's been a while since I read it, and I would really like to reread this one. Then we have Oh Little Town of Bethlehem, and that is a book set in a small town. And one that I remembered was in a fairly small town is The Souls of Lost Blake, because in this book, right at the beginning of the story, this young girl comes out of the woods carrying a bloody axe, and it turns out her family has been murdered. And then we flash forward to when she's 19, and that whole small town still has this negative view of her because they think that she did it, even though they know that it's physically not possible with the age and size that she was at the time for her to even lift the axe over her head. So it doesn't make sense, but they have this negative view of her. They kind of are friendly, but they're also not. I really like Jamie Jo Wright, so enjoyed this book. Then we've got Joy to the World, and this is a global setting, and when I was thinking about it, this is maybe this series is a little bit more global than necessarily just this book. But we've got Cinder. This is the Lunar Chronicles, so this book is set kind of in Asia. This is a sci-fi Cinderella story, and then book 2 is Little Red Riding Hood, but we're set in France, and they all connect, and here Cinderella is a cyborg. I really enjoy this series. I feel like pretty much everyone that has read it has enjoyed it. And so not only do we travel the world, but we also travel out to the moon and space. So I feel like it works for a global setting. So then we've got Silent Night, and this is an element of silence in the story. And for that one, I went with Sky Hunter by Marie Lu. And in this one, our main character cannot speak. This is a science fiction fantasy, I think it's a YA story. I've read book 1, but I haven't finished the series. Number 5 is I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, a married couple main characters. And this story actually has 3 main characters, but 2 of them are husband and wife. It's the nature of small birds. So in this one, we follow Bruce and Linda and their daughter Sunny. And the story is really about their other daughter, Mindy, who was adopted in 1975 from Vietnam. And so we follow Linda when they're adopting her, Bruce in the early 2000s as Mindy's kind of searching for her birth parents. And then we also follow Sunny, who is their biological daughter, when Sunny and Mindy are teenagers. This book, love it so much. Susie Finkbeiner breaks my heart in such a good way every time. The hardest prompt on this I found was Away to Manger, set on a farm or including farm animals. And I just don't really read a whole lot of books set on farms. I grew up on a farm. Glad to leave that life behind me, but this book was on my shelf, so I figured, hey, why not talk about Farmer Boy? Growing up, I would read the first book in the series, so this one is technically book number 2, and I would get to book number 2 and I would just stall out. Loved book 1, and then this one would just stop me from finishing the series. And in so many ways you don't have to read it. This is Almanzo's story, so that is Laura's husband. This is his time as a child. You can totally read the series without this book, but the story actually is pretty decent. I wish it wasn't book number 2 in the series. And then we have I'll Be Home for Christmas, a character trying to get home. And I just barely read a book. I had a vlog reading it. Knocking all sorts of books off my shelf here. I recently finished 6 Crimson Cranes, and this is all about Shiori, who has been cursed and kind of cast out of her home, and it's kind of about her trying to get back home. So that worked out perfectly. This is a fantasy story, like an Asian fairy tale feeling kind of book. We Three Kings, which is featuring a trio of main characters, and I finished one last month, and that is My Plain Jane. We mostly have Jane and Charlotte as our main characters, but there are some chapters with Alexander, so I'm gonna go with this. This is Jane Eyre, like a historical, alternate history, fantastical version of Jane Eyre. Really enjoying this series too. 12 Days of Christmas, which is a book with 12 letters in the title, and my son was looking on my shelf and he found one for me, and I love that he picked my favorite. It's The Story Girl by L.M. Montgomery. I always like to feature one of my different editions. This cover is interesting, that's for sure. Then we have In the Bleak Midwinter, set in the wintertime / in the snow. And the first book that jumped out at me for that one was Aggie Morton, Mystery Queen, Peril at Owl Park. And in this one, Aggie and her friend Hector go to visit Aggie's older sister at Owl Park, which is their land, home. And of course, they come across a dead body. And this Aggie Morton series is fun. I'm sad that it's over, but I enjoyed it. And then we have Blue Christmas, there we go, which is an all blue cover, and funnily enough this one was like pretty close, but I went with Lightfall, Shadow of the Bird. The illustrations in this graphic novel are amazing. There's so many pages that are mostly blue as well, so I don't know if I get bonus points for that, but there's lots of blue in this book. Definitely worth reading, even just for seeing the illustrations. Next up is Rudolph the Red-nosed Reindeer, a plot that deals with bullying. And I struggled with this partly because I think this happens a lot in like middle grade books, and I really don't like to read about bullying. But then I thought this one would count. It's a little princess. So in here, our main character, Sarah, starts out really rich, and then her father dies and she instantly becomes a servant. And some people treat her differently as a result, but Sarah does not act different. And I love that about this story. So this is what I'm going to pick for bullying. Then we've got Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Portrayal of the Spiritual World. When Holly did this, I think she picked a Frank Peretti book. Yeah, she did one of the This Present Darkness or Piercing the Darkness ones. My mind instantly went to Frank Peretti. But my personal favorite is The Oath, so I had to pick this one. In this one, there is a dragon type creature that is kind of like eating people and infesting people in this small village. I read it in high school, loved it. Reread it a couple of years ago, slightly dated references, but still loved the book just as much. I think for a person that doesn't reread very much, this is a book that I'm going to continue to reread every few years. Next up is It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, a story that manipulates time in some way. And apparently I'm either like I don't read very many of these, or I'm drawing a blank, but I did find one. This was thanks to my daughter. The Missing, this series, this book is called Found, and there's a little bit of time travel in this book, but I think the rest of the series is even more so. I just haven't read more from the series, but we'll go with this one. And the last one is Carol of the Bells, and that is a plot where music is a key element, and that is one of the prompts for the 2024 Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. So if you guys have suggestions, I'd love to hear those. But I picked The Lost Melody by Joanna Davidson Politano. This one, our main character is a concert pianist, and it has a lot to do with the storyline. So definitely recommend this, especially if you like slightly anxiety-inducing stories. I really love this one. So that is all for this tag. If you guys like tag videos, I think I'm gonna do more of them in 2024 if people are interested. I generally haven't done very many on my channel. I if I'm going to do a tag video, I'll often do it over on Patreon, but I don't know, I'm gonna switch some things up for 2024. I've got my goals coming up next week and I will tell you all about those. So let's just chat all about the books and things in the comments. And I will be back again tomorrow with another video. I hope you guys aren't getting sick of me. I'm kind of getting sick of saying that, like I feel like you guys must be getting sick of me. But I guess you don't have to watch the videos if you don't want to.